161st Street, Yankee Stadium.
Swung on a hill there to deep center. Gets back, away back. She is gone.
All right, welcome back to the boys of 161st Street. ALDS game 1 against the Guardians is in the books, and the Yankees win 4-1. We're recording this on Wednesday night, October 12th. Next game is supposed to be tomorrow, but it looks like rain, so it potentially is going to be rained out, or at least a delay. So we'll get into all that and recap the entire game. But before we get into all that, how are we doing? Chandler, I, myself, and Damon all went to the game yesterday. Murph was up in the Great North and couldn't quite make it down, but how was everybody's experience with the game?
Did you just say Chandler, I, myself, and Damon?
I believe he did.
I wasn't
Good
like counting
catch.
myself as two. I was more so saying me, myself, either way.
1 down, 10 to go. That's it.
When you put it like that, it sounds so easy.
Mm-hmm. I know. I think it was Jack Curry said, all you got to do is win 11 games. I know a lot of people have been saying it, but he was like the first one that I heard that.
It's like you got to go 11-8.
Wow,
something like that.
Sounds so easy. Like just win 11 games. You've been doing it all year.
Well, it's even worse when you look at the total. It's like, yeah, you need to win like 11 out of 19. Just go 11-8 in the month of October and you're fine.
Then you have to do it against the best teams of baseball. But yeah, well, so I'll
in the
be
right
honest,
order.
Like now I feel silly for saying how nervous I was before the game. Like Michael Kay said, the Yankees should absolutely obliterate Cleveland. And this game proved that the Yankees are the better team. But I was just looking at all these little quirks that Cleveland has under too much of a microscope and thinking that we didn't match up well. And of course, I still don't think we do. And a lot could go wrong from here on out. But I was very nervous before the game started that everything would like a Mets-esque breakdown. I really genuinely saw that as a possibility and was very relieved that they handled business in game 1 and specifically that Cole handled business in game 1.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that any of your impact and like how you were nervous about it. I wouldn't say any of that's relieved at all right now. I would say my one biggest takeaway from the first game is that, you know, we were at the game. The stadium was absolutely rocking. For those that were there was a very fun intro thing they did with Nick Swisher, which we didn't know at first was Nick Swisher. I'm not sure if they showed that on TV, Murph, but it's actually kind of fun.
There were very low quality videos of it, but it looked cool.
Not live on TV though.
No, I either was still on Yes when it was going on and then switched over because I was watching the Yes pregame and then switched over like right at first pitch.
Yeah.
So it might have been on TV. I just missed it.
This is going to be kind of fun because we get a in-game perspective and a watching TV perspective because I did hear that the broadcast sucked.
So did you guys actually see like the dragon go over the stadium? Like how crazy was that to see in person?
What do you mean the dragon go over the stadium?
No, there was an ad. There was like an ad for House of the Dragon that was put in the actual broadcast. Like it was somebody at the stadium with like this big CGI dragon like flying over the stadium, like she was talking about it and whatever. And
so I may have just sounded like an idiot, but we obviously didn't see that.
No,
ad,
obviously didn't see it.
So I'm just like, I don't know, was there a blimp or something that I missed? But I don't know. Very interesting. I did hear the broadcast sucked. So why did it suck?
Did you listen to anything of it, Luke? Like watch the highlights of like Bader's home run and of Rizzo's home run. It sounds like he's narrating a fucking funeral, dude. It was miserable.
Who was on the call?
It was Bob Costas and then the other guy I didn't recognize, but Chandler, you said he was a Mets guy. I didn't know his name. Sorry. But so when I was watching it, we were talking in a college Yankees group chat that we have that's still, pretty active, especially during the playoffs. And early on, Bob Costas is a broadcasting legend. One of my friends was like,
for the
Bob
fucking
Costas.
Olympics.
And I defended him at the very beginning of the game. And I was like, because he's just a great broadcaster. And in between pitches, he is good. But the second Bader hits his home run and the second Rizzo hit his home run too, I was like, you know what? You're right. Like he like you said, Chandler, sounded like he was narrating a funeral. Like there was no excitement in his voice at all.
You can get away with that when you're commentating like luge or figure skating or something like that. But playoff baseball, you gotta have a little bit of emotion to it. Like Bader Sommer was like, or I think it was Rizzo is like, Rizzo's happy, the Yankees dugout's happy. Cal Quantrill is not happy. It's like, really? That's your call to just hit the most electric, like the most electric moment of the game so far? Your call is that? Like, come on now.
I'm gonna be honest. I obviously we didn't listen to the game, but I isn't Joe Buck not doing any of the games this year because he's doing like football or something?
Well, yeah, I guess he's just kind of taking a step back in general, which sucks because I mean, people hate Joe Buck. I personally like Joe Buck.
That's what I was gonna say.
And
I just associate his voice with baseball.
That's what I mean. There's a chill in the air. Joe Buck's voice is on TV. I don't have that same feeling with John Schmaltz because he's the worst.
He's the color guy though. Like the color guy, I mean, matters definitely, but. You know, when it comes to John Smoltz isn't the one calling home runs.
No, and
so
Joe
when you
Buck,
listen to the highlights, you're not hearing John Smoltz, you're hearing Joe Buck.
And Joe Buck got into it. He would always give you a good call, like say what you want about him as an announcer. I really like his voice to me, just like resembles history. And there are some great calls that I've watched in my lifetime, and Joe Buck was on the call, so just like nostalgic with him on the mic. So upset about that, but yeah, overall, the game was a lot of fun to go to.
It's crazy how many great baseball announcers there have been, just in general. And obviously it's a dying art form, but because there aren't as many as there used to be. But the fact that the best you can put together for playoff baseball games are like not as good as the local guys. Like Michael Kay right now is called the best game that I've watched in the postseason so far.
When he was calling the Cardinals game, right?
Yeah. And like he's the Yankees local guy. And I know that some of the, local guys from other teams, names I can't remember, but they seem to be a lot better than these national guys who don't call a lot of baseball, who I don't know. It's weird.
I didn't realize like how many of these impactful calls that Joe Buck had. I was putting together that like tick pick thing yesterday, the little video ad, and every single one of those clips, like the Boone home run, the Jeter Mr. November, the Brocious hits it into left. All those are Joe Buck. Like even the game that we got to learn, like Altuve sent the Astros to the World Series. That's Joe Buck. Like I think the 3-run home run off the foul pole might have been Joe Buck. Like just every good memory you associate, or bad memory that you associate with the Yankees comes from Joe Buck.
I mean, they're just all good calls too, but
he is,
I don't know. Moving on from that, that's definitely upsetting that he's not the announcer. I don't know if we're gonna get any with Kay. Maybe hopefully it's not all Bob Costas.
He's only doing it with ESPN, and they're not getting a ton of these games anymore.
But yeah, let's dive into the game a little bit. Actually, before we dive into the game, so it is supposed to rain. And me and Murph were talking before we got on the air, Chandler. So I'm curious to get your take on this. Because at first glance I thought, and same thought process as we were talking about in the last episode, that I don't know why there's an off day today. The whole benefit to them or to not playing a wild card series is the fact that we will be rested, and building in a rest day after game one seems a little silly to me, considering you want them to feel the detriment of not winning the division or being a top 2 seed. So that, like, out of the gate, I thought was stupid. Now on top of that, they're going to get an extra day's rest. So essentially now all sides are equal. It's a fresh series with the exception of being down 1-0. So that was my first read of that, but Murph had an interesting take on that. So Murph, why don't you enlighten us?
Yeah, so I, again, forget who was talking about it exactly, but if the game does get pushed to Friday, then we're going to go through an entire series with Cleveland where they're not going to be able to pitch Bieber or McKenzie twice. If the game were today, then Bieber would certainly be well rested enough to pitch game 5. And if it were tomorrow, he'd be able to throw it on 3 games rest. If this game gets pushed to Friday, then he's only going to have 2 days rest before game 5. So he's most likely not going to be able to go out there unless he has a short outing in game 2.
And in which case Cole would now be able to absolutely pitch
and
again.
We'd be at a weird spot, though, because Cole already pitched. So regardless of what happens with the next few games, he'll be ready for game 4. That would be his normal rest. Game 4 is going to be on Sunday. So if this game gets pushed back, though, if this game's on Thursday, then Nestor would be good to go for game 5 if there is one. If the game gets pushed back to Friday, you're not going to be able to throw Sevilla or Nestor. So you're going to need to throw Tyone either game 4 or game 5, if applicable. And so you kind of have to navigate that then. if the game gets pushed Friday, because either Tyone is going to have to start game 4 and Cole's going to have to go out for game 5, or Cole's going to go out for game 4 on full rest, and then you're going to have to save Tyone to start game 5, or Herman, either one, or do a bullpen day, whatever you have to do. But
I think
it's going to take Nestor out for the second game.
Well, I think if you end up with this, you obviously have to evaluate the series. I don't think there's any set, like, solidified, this is going to be the game plan. I think if you do this and you win game 2 and you roll into game 3 with Sevy, whatever, say you lose that game, you're 2-1 in the series, then I think you have afforded yourself that luxury to start Herman or to start Tyone without really sweating it a whole lot, and then you have the other one as backup. I think if you're down in the series, then you play to win that day. You play with Cole. You do whatever you got to do. So I think let's get through games 2 and 3 and reevaluate when you get there. I don't think there's a set plan. I don't think you can have a set plan until you know what you're playing for on that day.
Absolutely. And that just shows how important game 2 is, especially if it's on Friday, because, if you go up 2-0 and go to Cleveland, you've afforded yourself that at least if all goes to hell, there is a game 5 in the Bronx. If you drop tomorrow and you split, then you could theoretically lose the series in Cleveland. And then, your pitching matchups get more complicated. So if you're up 2-1 going into game 4, I think the play would be to start Herman and Tyone most likely, because then either you're going to have game 5 with Cole in the Bronx, or you're going to win that game 4 in Cleveland, and then you're going to have Cole ready to throw game 1 in the next series on full rest.
I think that's the only way you can go about it.
I think so too. But it's going to be interesting if they're 1-2 going into game 4. So if you drop the next 2, then all bets are off. You can throw Cole game 4.
Yeah. So ahead of the game, our friend, we've brought him up on the show a bunch of times before. He's our friend. He's a Red Sox fan. Me and Murph went to school with him. His name's Matt. He asked me, I thought it was sarcastic before the game, but he wanted to know my keys to the game. So I was like, are you being sarcastic or do you actually want my keys? Because I got keys. So I was like, all right, well, he actually wanted to know. So it was like, here's Luke's keys to the game. And a lot of them actually did come true. And I think this is obviously relevant to the remainder of the series. It's more so to the game today, but like these things need to happen every single game for us to do well. It's not even necessarily tailored just to this series, but for the entire playoffs. But I just wanted to go over the keys and see like which boxes we checked in the first game. So my first key was obviously starters to give length because our bullpen sucks / is hurt. So Cole did that. Cole, I know a lot of people have kind of mixed feel. I was shocked to hear this, that people had mixed feelings about Cole because I think he's shoved. There were times where he did look a little inaccurate and he was just throwing the curveball a lot. So if they were able to lay off the curveball, to play devil's advocate, people are saying if they were able to lay off the curveball. I'm just saying. Yes, Cole, all right, I'll stop there. Cole shoved.
Stop.
He gave length, all that.
Can we dive into that a little bit though? Because the biggest thing, in my opinion, that happened is he got into trouble. He allowed his home run. That was going to happen. We all knew that. What was it, 9 postseason games in a row and 8 games in a row that he's allowed a home run? We know that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then after that, he gets in a bases loaded jam. Right.
That's not his fault.
No, it's not. I agree it's not. The biggest thing that he showed me is that after he missed his spot, because he did miss his spot. It was a good pitch, but he missed his spot. And he left a fastball, and Kwon got a hold of it. So that went wrong. Then the bases get loaded on IKF booting a ball, and then kind of that little misplay, which great play from Oscar Gonzalez to pretend he was running home, but they missed the out there when on the ground ball to Rizzo. And then so the bases are loaded, and he had to get a few outs that inning. And then he pitches out of that, even though things that were out of his control were going awry. And that was like the prime example of an inning that he would normally blow up in. And I thought for sure that he would, if he like stuff started hitting the fan. And he worked his way out of it. And he needed that so badly to be able to work out of a little jam like that. And he did. And that was the biggest takeaway, in my opinion.
I think that's the only takeaway you can have.
That was my last key.
You can't have any negative takeaways about Garrett Cole's performance last night. If you're taking negatives away from that, you're looking at this. I mean, you're not a coach, so there's no need for us to break it down any further than what we saw. You had your ace go out there in his first start in the Bronx. He gave you 6+. He struck out 8. He gave up 1 run. He pitched around some very, very shoddy defense. He pitched around some really shoddy calls. what more do you want from the guy? Like, that is perfect.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the headline.
No, we're
Signed,
all
sealed,
on the same
delivered.
page.
I know. I'm
I
just saying.
wanted to address the elephant in the room from the people because people are talking, and I just wanted to address that. Apparently, not everybody thought it was just a great start by Garrett Cole. This is everything you can ask for.
He didn't come out like the first couple innings. I was like, oh, he kind of doesn't really have it.
That's what we were
was
saying
all
to
over the
Chandler.
corners, and Cole was leaving him out over a little bit, and like even the first at bat, Quan ripped one foul. Jose Ramirez ripped 2 foul in his first at bat, and I'm like, they're on him. And then he dialed in and he got there. And it was after he got out of that third inning. That could have gone one of 2 ways, and it worked out.
Yeah. So the biggest thing there, I think, was, and that was one of my keys to the game, was that when he does inevitably get into trouble, like you said, Murph, in that bases loaded spot, he limited the damage, keeping the ball in the ballpark. He only gave up 1 home run. And when he does give up something, a home run to Quan, specifically in this spot, don't unravel like he did when he was throwing a perfect game through 5 or 6, and then he gave up 4 and lost the lead. So he did that. He did that well. Kudos to Cole. Got the ovation. That was just a very fun time. And yeah, I'm very happy about that. My other key to the game, another one that came true as well, was that obviously ahead of the game, last 2 weeks of the season, Judge was getting walked like nobody's business, obviously, because he was getting a home run record that he was chasing and obviously hitting the daylights out of the ball. So him being walked a lot was probably a good assumption. I think he only had 1 walk and no hits, and 3 strikeouts
Ks.
actually. So
3 Ks.
Yeah, but my key was that like people around him, like Rizzo, Stanton, Glaber, need to come up big when they have the chance to and be good, especially moving forward. Because if they're playing well, like how they have the new batting average, it starts over in the postseason. People look up at that. You get the scouting reports, who's hot, who's not. If Rizzo, Stanton, and Glaber are all playing well, that gives Judge protection in future games. So these guys need to be playing well all throughout the playoffs in order to let Judge get pitches that he'll be able to see. And Rizzo took one deep. I'm not sure, did Glaber and Stanton do anything?
Glaber got a hold of his first one. It was on the warning track in the first
No hits
inning.
though, but no strikeouts.
He had
Stan put together a couple really good. Yeah, Stan put together a couple really good at bats. Nothing to show for him. I think he walked once or twice, and he had a couple Ks. I think he had a pop up and a couple, like a K or 2. But he was locked in. He was fouling pitches straight back. Which when Stanton isn't waving and missing, when he's able to catch up to the fastball up and in, that's the dangerous Stanton. That's the Stanton that's locked in. That's going to take, you hang one, he's going to take it 500 feet. He showed a lot of that. Yeah, he didn't get results necessarily, but anybody who watched his at bats, like you could tell that there's a lot of positives there. This isn't the Stanton from September that was completely fucking lost. So yeah. I think that's a massive positive. Bader, obviously, we'll get to that. But I thought a lot of the at-bats all around, especially against Quantrill and how he looked last night, where, especially early on, he was dotting corners. I know Murph texted us like multiple times we were at the game of like, holy shit, like Quantrill is just painting. And we were sitting right there. Well, yeah, we were sitting right there where the TV was right above our heads. So you could, watch the game and be like, and then everybody boos. And it was actually just like a perfect strike on the corner. So, the math checks out. He was dealing. He looked really good, and I thought we put together a lot of good at bats, and that's just something you're going to have to do against good pitching. Obviously, Quantrill's not the best of the best that we're going to face. The real test in this series comes tomorrow or Friday, whenever you face Bieber. But I think the's a lot of encouraging signs.
Yeah, he's no slouch though, so I'm happy with the way they handled him, and you heard it from Rizzo post game too. Like they asked what he saw there and all that, and he's like, Quantrill was absolutely dealing tonight. I was able to get a hold of one mistake, and that was probably his only mistake all night, honestly.
Yeah, Bader's hit was off a good pitch. It was, and then manufactured a run off. What I don't know if it was an error, Oscar Gonzalez, but it should have been, because he's not getting an extra base hit if he fields that cleanly, and he ended up with a triple. So
I would say it was a double and an error. Because he's fast.
I think he gets thrown out at second, but I don't know.
No, it's IKF running, so he's pretty fast. That's about the only thing he can do right.
Let's see what they gave him.
Christ. Oh, it's got to be a double in there.
No, single.
Really?
Yeah.
All right, even better. So, That's something that needs to be addressed because we haven't talked. Maybe we have. I don't think we've talked since the official roster being released. No, we haven't. So Peraza being left off is, I think when you leave Marwin and Hicks on, I think that sends a bad message, right or wrong. Like whether you want to say you want to put a rookie on there or not, if he was hitting 250 and playing defense and he was just this highly touted rookie, that's one thing. But he's been one of our best hitters for the last month, and especially when we were trying to rest starters, he came in, he proved he belonged. And then just as fate has it, first inning, first ball up the middle, IKF fucking boots it and then immediately grounds into an inning double play. So like I think it sends a bad message to your prospects that it doesn't matter what you fucking do. Like we have our guys, and if you're not one of them, then fuck you.
See, I'm not surprised that Hicks is on the roster over him. I kind of saw that coming, whether it's right or wrong, because I mean, obviously, I think I'd rather have Peraza. I think he provides more value, but we knew that Hicks was going to be on there over Peraza. Marwin, I'm genuinely surprised about because I don't know one thing that Marwin does that we need that Peraza can't do better. Because I guess he can play the outfield, but so can everyone else on the bench. And Peraza can play anywhere in the infield.
First base, maybe.
You know,
that's the only thing I can think of is that whenever
Cabrera can play first base.
I know, but that's the only
Carpenter
thing I can think of.
Base.
That's the only thing that I can think of is that whenever DJ got officially ruled out is when Marwin made that roster.
Oh, and it was. But what I
thought,
the
only thing that makes sense.
So I thought that this roster would look pretty much like it did, except with DJ without Marwin. I figured if DJ was left off, it would be Peraza instead of Marwin. And it should have been. There's no reason, but we're not going to see Marwin. Probably, hopefully.
We wouldn't have seen Peraza in full disclosure. We would not have seen Peraza. He was not going to be the starting shortstop. There was 0% chance of that happening, no matter what he did throughout that last month. So, you know, I'm the biggest one to shit on IKF, whatever, especially for how he played last night and his first opportunity at a Yankees uniform in the playoffs. It might be his first playoff appearance ever. I'm not totally sure. But
he did have a triple.
No, he didn't.
No, he had a single.
He had a single, and he played pathetic in the field. There's no way around it. He had one nice double play. Congrats, you're a major leaguer. You're supposed to make that play. But I just lost my train of thought when you said he had a triple. That pissed me off. So no. So Peraza was never going to start shortstop, is what I was getting at. And we could sit here and bitch about IKF, whatever. It doesn't matter. He was going to start. He was going to start every game. It doesn't matter what Peraza did. So that's kind of where I'm at on it. Like, I'm pissed off about it, but it should never have been in that situation, but it was always going to, I guess.
Yeah. Murph, you said something interesting. You said, you mentioned Marwin and how he's hopefully not going to play at all. I think that's interesting because I agree with you, but I think that's interesting that they even had him on the roster considering they are carrying 14 and position players and 12 pitchers. If he's not going to be on the field, then why not carry an extra pitcher in that case?
Yeah, I agree because
who do we have though?
Clear reason for LeCastro to be on there. You need some guy who can do that. Clear reason for Higashio could be on there. You always need two catchers. Plus, he could start a game in there somewhere. Carpenter, obviously for the bat, and then Hicks, I kind of see because he's the next guy that can play outfield. He is a switch hitter. He has been in the playoffs before. I see that a little bit. I still don't know if I would have put him on my playoff roster, but I see why he's on there. Marwin, nothing. Yeah, he's a switch hitter. Yeah, maybe he's been in the postseason, but that's why you have Hicks. He can't run. He plays subpar defense in a few different positions, but guess who you can move anywhere? You could move Cabrera to any position on the field and put someone in left. You know, I feel like Peraza would have, if given this chance, more of an impact than Marwin ever will. And if we're in a situation where Marwin comes in, most likely Peraza could have filled that same hole.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, Luke, why don't you go with another pitcher? After, we didn't even talk about this, after the Ross injury and Chapman just being a shitty human, what options do you really have outside of bringing in like Weissert or something? Because there's nobody that was left off that roster that would have had a true pitching impact. No, not Abreu. What the fuck are you going to do with Abreu in the postseason?
Well, what are you going to do with anyone? So, that's what I'm saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Nobody. Do you want a guy, at the very least, at the end of a game, if you need if you get to like a long 16 inning game, just like they had the other night, and you need a pinch runner, at least Marwin could do that. But Abreu doesn't really give you anything other than mop up innings. So I don't know. I don't even know if Abreu is fully healthy.
Yeah. Another thing on health that we didn't talk about yet because it was yesterday morning or whenever the lineup came out is that the fact that just I thought it was very funny. Everybody was looking forward to the 26-man roster, and then the Yankees are like, yeah, here's the roster, but like everybody's hurt, and they didn't mention anything about it until that moment. So,
dude, Efros got hurt
sucked.
2 weeks ago, and they hit it.
I know that sucked. DJ got hurt. Efros was hurt. Marinaccio obviously isn't on the roster. He didn't look good walking out when they were announcing the names. I don't know if you guys saw that on TV, but he was like limping and crutching around. He wasn't on crutches, but he was limping around. It didn't look great. Not very promising. Obviously, Benintendi not on the roster. Montas not on the roster. So if we move on to the ALCS, there is the hope to look forward to. They didn't necessarily rule out DJ yet, but they've been saying it's a long shot for him
foot.
Yeah, I know. They didn't rule it out, but I don't know. That I needed to say that at least. But he's probably not going to be on the roster. Benintendi, Montas, who knows? We'll see. But for all intents and purposes, I actually have been saying that wrong for my entire life, and Chandler corrected me yesterday. I used to say for all intensive purposes, and I honestly, I'm willing to bet that a lot of people listening to this podcast also said for all intensive purposes, so I don't feel stupid for saying that. But it's all intents and purposes. If you knew that, great. If you didn't, you're welcome. But for all intents and purposes, this is probably the roster we're going to have moving forward, if we do move forward beyond this series. And one thing that I wanted to talk about, specifically about, I guess, completely pivoting off of that, is the Donaldson play off the wall, because that was something that I wanted to bring up, because this is our first time we're going to name this. I think we're maybe potentially, if the shoe fits, every game going to have a Kia Cuck of the game. And I think the perfect person for that is our first Kia Cuck of the game is Josh Donaldson. One, because, he hits that near home run off the top of the wall. That's not a home run. I don't care what you say. That at the top of the wall came back in.
I understand that now, but at the time, I was so confused as to how I've never seen a ball hit the top of the wall. I get that there's padding and then an actual cement wall and like how it physically can come back in. But I watched that replay so many times in just utter disbelief and confusion on how that did not. I thought it hit the box, the Bud Light box that was like resting there. Like I really did. I was like, that's a home run. Like
I hate Josh Donaldson
in other games, not in the Yankees games.
I hate Josh Donaldson. Like, that is no secret. I will give him this to his credit. The first base coach did high five him. Like,
dude, I would have done the same thing.
What are you supposed to think as a base runner when your coach is high fiving you? That, like, you don't high five a guy trying to leg out a double. So
I mean, he should have been legging it out to begin with.
They played the siren.
Stopped. Yeah,
they played the siren.
I got an alert on my phone. It said Donaldson homers 2-1 Yankees. Like everyone thought it was out. I mean, good for Gonzalez for actually throwing it in, because I probably would have thought it was a dead ball if I was in right field too. But I mean, I think ball don't lie though, because right after that, one goes right between the wickets, like Mr. Gonzalez, and IKF somehow gets a triple and gets batted in. But like, I was so mad when that happened, and not even because he could have had a double. It was just like, how did that not go out?
No, he is the king of hitting balls 313 and a half feet and then seeing what happens. He's either going to pimp it and get thrown out, or he's going to pimp it and it's going to be a fucking wall scraper. So I don't know. But outside of that, I'll give credit where credit's due. I said coming into this that if you need a guy that's going to really and truly propel this team to the next level in the playoffs, it's got to be Josh Donaldson, because they're not going to stop putting him in the middle of the order. And to his credit, he was 2 for 2 and drew a walk. So he played
He made a damn good play at third base too. Flash leather right before, and we didn't mention this too. Speaking of flash and leather, Cabrera making that fantastic play in left field.
Yeah, that was almost a Steve Bartman situation.
That was really, really cool.
Pretty close. Yeah. So did you hear about he lost? Yeah, the defensive card came out of his hat, and he got the hat back, but somebody has that defensive card.
That's cool. I wouldn't give it back. That's a really cool piece of memorabilia. Fan? Yeah, I think so. I would keep it.
No, I'm saying, do you think it was a Yankees fan or a Guardians fan that hit him on purpose, trying to?
Oh, I didn't see that.
From the ball? I
I
mean,
mean,
he
it wasn't
stiff-armed
really
him in
the
the
guy was going for the ball. But
He stiff-armed
same
him
way
in the mouth.
Bartman was. Bartman was a Cubs fan. He was still going for the ball. I don't know.
I don't think Bartman's a Cubs fan anymore.
One more thing that
wouldn't
was interesting on the Donaldson thing. I remember hearing somewhere somebody was talking about it, but the how much it kind of extra sucked because the potential that could have been called like a ground rule double because nobody really knew what was going on, and they could have called it dead and then called a ground rule double, and that's why. So more like fuel to the fire of like.
Well,
I don't think that was
Donaldson's.
Yeah, I don't think that was Donaldson's fault whatsoever. But
I mean,
it's
it kind of
Donaldson's
sucks though because
fault
like
for-
definitely run hard out of the box if you know it's close, and he didn't run hard even out of the box before that part happened. But like, can't really blame him that much. Casas was ripping him to and what's his name? The guy whose name I keep forgetting.
Ron Darling.
Thank you, Ron Darling. They were both kind of ripping him for it, and I'm like, I'd be the first one to rip on him if it was really his fault. The way it looked, can't fault him.
Yeah. Couple things here because I mean we've already been talking about this game for a while. It's only one game, but couple things just rattle off that I wanted to see and I didn't. Wanted to see Matt Carpenter. Didn't see there was a situation where he'd probably come in, but I just wanted to see him for selfish purposes. And two, the real thing that I want to talk about was I want to get you guys' take on taking out Wandy with 8 pitches. And bringing in Clay Holmes for the final 2 outs when it seemingly wasn't really much of an issue for Wandy. Obviously, not a lot of pitches. I get what you're saying. Like you can't really ask him to get all of those outs, but you can when he has low pitches. So I'm curious.
You can.
To see.
That's not the problem. I don't have an issue with it because Wandy Peralta hasn't thrown in a month. Clay Holmes has thrown one playoff inning ever. You have a 4-1 lead. Get your closer some work in a high leverage spot. Don't push Wandy, a guy that hasn't thrown a pitch in a month off a major league mound. Like, you lose nothing and gain everything by that. Unless Clay Holmes comes in and blows that lead, which he didn't. Like, he walked a guy and his command wasn't perfect, but your odds of blowing that game are very, very slim. That's a perfect situation to work your guy that was supposed to be your guy. That was supposed to be the closer, work him back into that role. And also let the guy who hasn't thrown in a month kind of take a breather. Like, hey, you did a good job. You did your job. You did more than we could have asked for. Like, I'm not saying that his pitch count was so high that it was going to hurt him or affect him, but you have an off day the next day. Why not get your closer some work?
Yeah, and then
he's got one postseason inning ever.
Yeah, and I mean, Wandy didn't really have much either, and so you did need to throw Wandy, and the 8 pitches are fine, but you can't have him getting a 5-out save to begin with. And then he comes, I know it's 8 pitches. So once he got the first out, I'm like, oh, maybe they will. And then when they pinch hit Miller, he's a righty. You don't want Wandy. They brought Wandy in to begin with because he was facing Jimenez and then Brennan, and he may or may not face Gonzalez. But either way, they were trying to pitch him to the lefties. They bring in a righty pinch hitter. You're up 3. You only need to get 2 outs. When else are you going to know whether Holmes has it or not? Like, what's a better situation to put him in? And that was the perfect one, and it made sense. If they left Brennan in, then Wandy probably would have gotten one more out and then maybe finished it. But
I think this was the game plan the entire time. I think that you were going to let Wandy go either till you got to the righties or till he showed a crack. He got to the righties. Clay Holmes is in. I don't think the situation mattered there. I think it was solely to get your guys some work in a game that your odds of winning are 95% plus. So,
I agree with all that, and I'm just the reason why I was a little skeptical and the reason why I brought it up is because just like if the guys work, and I know it's the playoffs and you have a plan, and I agree. I think there was a plan. That was the plan. When they got to the lefties or the righties, they would bring in Clay Holmes, and you need to get him some work. But in the playoffs, you have such a small margin for error, and you never know if some guy has it that day. Wandy had it. That's all I was saying is like, why not leave him in or try to get there?
Yeah, but that's the thing. You have it until you don't when you're a reliever. It's not like a starter.
Yeah, but at least that's a guarantee on the day. But at least that's a guarantee on the day versus a new guy coming in. That was my only thing.
It's not though, because look
at
Helsley.
No, it's not. All it takes is Wandy to peg one guy and then leave a hanger, and it's a 4-3 game. Now you're bringing Clay Holmes into a completely different situation.
But he had 8 pitches.
It doesn't matter how many
like-
pitches he has. He's not a starting pitcher. It's a reliever. You know,
It was
you
8
face.
pitches.
I know he wasn't tired, but you have the rest of the series. That wasn't why they pulled him because he was tired. They pulled him because of the matchup. And you know,
If that's the case,
Cardinals
that's
did
fine.
it
I'm
last
with you
week
then.
in the wild card. They tried to get Helsley to throw a 5-out save, and he blew it with 2 outs in the 9th inning. And now,
and I guess,
the Phillies are in the ALDS,
I could
so-
be
or
sitting here
NLDS,
looking silly
so-
if he stayed in, and I mean, it looks like a good decision now because it worked. So I'll just bite my tongue then. I just
Also,
thought,
Loaizaga,
I think it
I'm
was a
glad
good
we
decision
saw him.
regardless. Like I do not see much of a downside. Like Murph said, as a reliever, you have it till you don't. Even then, like 8 pitches, he looked amazing. You have to, if not, then win. Exactly like Murph said. You've got to get Clay Holmes some work. He's been off and on the fucking IL since the All-Star break. Phantom injuries or not, he's shit the bed. You got to build the guy's confidence back up. If you're gonna go far in this postseason, if you want to win the CS, if you want to make it to a World Series and ultimately win a World Series, Clay Holmes has got to be a dude, especially with all these injuries. You can't throw him into an unknown. If you go out there and you kick ass again tomorrow or Friday, you get a 2-0 lead, and then you know, what if he doesn't get another opportunity? Or what if his next opportunity comes in and your text clean inning, this is a Clay Holmes save situation, he hasn't thrown in 2 weeks. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. So I don't know. Like, I get it. And in the moment when you're in the stadium, you're like, why the fuck are you taking out Wandy? And everybody loves Wandy. He's a fan favorite. So seeing him leave, it's a little bit of an emotional reaction of, well, what the fuck? He's got 8 pitches. But when you kind of peel back the curtain and then you look at the situation that's unfolded over the last month or two, especially with injuries to both of them, it makes sense.
no, I agree. I'm with you. I like what you said about making sure he at least got some work coming off being rusty. Him now, you look at it from just a macro lens moving forward. Both of them now got meaningful work in the playoffs, and that's a good thing for both of those players who were not very active towards the stretch of the end of the season there. So I'm happy about it. Just wanted to bring it up. I think that was it for me. Did you have anything else that you guys wanted to chat about? Judge had a steal and then took third. That was pretty cool. But
That was, yeah. The only other thing was I was glad to see Loaizaga get in there. I think he's going to be another big bullpen guy that's probably going to get some leverage situations. I feel like he was the right call there because you don't have to just throw him in high leverage, but I was glad to see that he got work. I think we'll see Trevino, first one out of the bullpen situation pending, obviously, but I feel like we'll see him and then
Loaizaga quietly been probably our best reliever for like 2 or 3 months now.
you think he has any chance to be a de facto closer at any point?
No, he's not going to be closing. I think they'll have Trevino closing before him. Or
I think that there's a good chance if Trevino struggles even a little bit that you could see Loaizaga close a game.
Maybe a game. I don't know if he'd be like a close. We're not going to have a closer no matter who it's going to be.
I mean,
that's what I'm saying. I think he's gonna get work as a closer in this postseason. I think he's given up 2 extra base hits since July. That's pretty good.
It's gonna be revolving door. It's gonna be even like Cole might close some games and and if you need to shut the door to get out of a series. Like I don't know why you're making that face. He totally could be.
I know it could be. I hope not though. I don't like that.
Okay, I mean,
how it worked out.
I've seen it all the time. Like Chris Sale's done it. Nate Eovaldi's done it.
Yeah, Robbie
against
Ray's
us.
done it too, and
Cole was
Alvarez
going
took
to
him
do it
500
against
feet
us
in the bottom of the 9th inning with 3 men on.
Okay, well that's Robbie
I
Ray.
mean, Garrett Cole is not Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray's the
not.
biggest
Robbie Ray won a
cuck
Cy
Cy
Young
Young
last
winner
year,
ever.
so.
Oh my God! You literally texted us yesterday that he was the biggest fraud Cy Young winner of all time. You can't have it both ways.
I don't think I said that. You're right.
Fits your narrative.
I don't think I actually said that, but I mean he might be.
Yeah, I can cite the source and tweet it out.
Except for Porcello. But either way, the point is he's not the worst pitcher in the world. Might be the worst Cy Young winner in the world, but he's still a Cy Young, and they still brought him in. He's still a starter.
Yeah, on
and
2 days rest, and he coming off a terrible start.
I would not
a pretty
like
bad
to see
ending
Cole
to the
close
season.
Maybe
I would
maybe
love
not.
it.
The point is, I
Massive
think we're going to see a
I know it's
revolving
been
door,
done.
and I don't necessarily think it has to be a reliever that's going to get closed. I wouldn't be, like, hot take, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Nestor Cortez in a winner go home situation closing out innings.
And he would be in the Jackknife Hall of Fame.
That's what I mean. I think that more than Cole, I could see him close. If you had to choose, gun to your head, Cole or Nestor closing out a game to move, get out of town, go to the next series game, I think I'm taking Nestor there.
Taking Garrett Cole.
I'll answer that question after game 2. How about that?
Yeah,
probably
Nestor plays.
Cole.
I don't know. I kind of wouldn't hate it, but yeah. Moving on to next game. Shane Bieber versus Nestor Cortez. We'll see what Nestor has. I'm confident in Nestor. We roughed up Bieber last time we played him in the playoffs. So that being said, he did just deal against the Rays last. They don't have as good of bats as us, so that's interesting to see how he fares against us this time. But yeah, I'm feeling good. One thing I just want to say before, this series is absolutely not over. I do think that this being such a young team, the Guardians, I think they were probably a little shook coming into the Bronx. It was very loud. They definitely did not have that treatment in the last series. I mean, they were home the entire series, so they never felt anything like this, most of them, because they're all like 22 years old. So I think maybe there's a chance they settle in, and we'll see how that fares in the next games. But
I think this
definitely not
will
locked yet.
Definitely go 4, and that wouldn't shock me if it goes 5.
Yeah,
it's a good team. This is a very good team.
Yeah, I think
don't
game
count
2.
them out.
I mean, obviously the next game is always the most important, but game 2 is huge because I'd feel much better going to Cleveland knowing you're going to have to come back to the Bronx or you're going to win.
Yeah, that's true. That's it for me. Anything else from you guys?
That's it.
All right. Hopefully, the game does not get rained out, and we got some baseball to watch tomorrow. See ya.